Hi and welcome to the very first episode of 3 and Out here on LTTV, a show airing all summer long on Wednesdays, a half-hour-long show talking about 3 big events in the sports world from this week and a 4th segment with smaller events. My name is Johnny Lombardi, and with me, the new LT alum and current Iowa State Cyclone, Tim Goldrick. Now, Tim, I got to ask you before we get started, what are you more excited about, Iowa State basketball or Iowa State football?
Well, Johnny, it's got to be Iowa State basketball. Last year, we saw the incredible run they had. Fred Hoiberg's got his team just shooting threes, having a good time. They play up-tempo. I'm really excited to go to some Iowa State basketball games this year.
Absolutely. Ames, Iowa will be abuzz with Tim Goldrick working down there. Now, our first subject to talk about today, obviously the Stanley Cup playoffs. The sweet home Chicago Blackhawks are headed back to the finals for the first time since 2010 to take on the 4th seed Boston Bruins. Now, the Blackhawks, an interesting road getting to the finals, Tim, a 4-1 series victory over the 8 seed Minnesota Wild, and then the incredible 4-3 Game 7 comeback by the Chicago Blackhawks against the Detroit Red Wings. What has been the most impressive moment for you coming up to the finals, the comeback against Detroit or the Game 5 winner in double overtime from Patrick Kane against Los Angeles?
I thought it was definitely the Game 5 winner against Los Angeles because they gave up that late goal to LA, and you're thinking, oh, God, momentum swinging. The Kings have a history of coming back. They won the Stanley Cup last year. But each line came out in overtime, they did their job, and they got rewarded with the game winner by Patrick Kane.
Just think about it. You're 12 seconds away from going to the Stanley Cup Finals again, and Brian Bickle ices the puck, and you have a face-off in your own end, and a fluke. It really was a fluke goal, and you got to come back from that. And in the first overtime, it took them a while to get their legs under them, and they finally were able to do it, as you said, Patrick Kane, the game winner. But a real big story in this final series is going to be the goaltending matchup. Corey Crawford with a 1.74 goals against average, and Tuukka Rask of the Boston Bruins with a 1.75 goals against average. So pretty even in the goaltending area. So who has to be bigger for their team?
I would say it has to be Corey Crawford, because Corey Crawford, when he plays well, the Hawks seem to all play well behind him. And when Corey Crawford's making terrific saves, it frees up the defense a little bit to play more offense. And we see how effective Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, Nick Leddy are when they can go deep into the offensive zone and really get the puck in deep and score on certain occasions.
Absolutely. It's been really a year of growth for Corey Crawford, as he's been extremely shaky in the past in the playoffs, and this year he's just been extremely solid for the Chicago Blackhawks. And then we were talking about the Blackhawks' impressive 3-1 comeback against the Detroit Red Wings. The Boston Bruins, in my opinion, had a bigger comeback against the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 7 at the TD Garden in Boston, down 4-1 to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 3rd period. Late in the 3rd period, 3 goals in the last 10 minutes, and Boston eventually wins that game in overtime on a goal by Patrice Bergeron. That is just one of the craziest things I've seen in the playoffs.
And that's just resiliency. Boston has shown it all year. They've gone by their motto, Boston Strong, and they've really shown that they have been strong throughout the whole series, and they've been strong throughout the whole playoffs. And this matchup is just going to be a battle of resiliency. Which coach can get their team to have the most momentum going in and keep that momentum throughout the series?
Absolutely. As you just said, 2 teams with a lot of resiliency, but 2 really different styles of play. The Blackhawks with a lot better speed and offense compared to the Boston Bruins. But Boston's physical. They like to play defense. And they caught the Pittsburgh Penguins off their game. The Pittsburgh Penguins are like the Blackhawks. They play with speed and offense. And the Bruins got the Penguins to try to play physical, and they ended up sweeping the Penguins in the Eastern Conference Finals. How crucial is it for the Blackhawks to not fall into Boston's trap?
Well, one thing that's going to be interesting, and you know this, since there's been no crossover games all year, we have nothing to compare the Blackhawks against Boston against. So we have no idea how the Blackhawks are going to respond, if they're going to respond like Pittsburgh. But you made a great point on not falling into the trap that Pittsburgh did. Chicago, I know they want to play their own style of game, but they're going to need to be physical as well. You see, when they muscle up, and they did against LA, who was supposed to be a more physical team, they came out to play, and they played more physical and ended up being the beneficiary of a 5-game series.
Absolutely. I mean, you just said it in itself. The Kings tried to play physical with the Blackhawks, and everyone was saying going into the Kings, even the Detroit series was, oh, Detroit's going to play physical. They're going to outmuscle you. Oh, the Kings are going to outmuscle you. And the Blackhawks dismantled the Los Angeles Kings. Maybe not dismantle, but they did defeat them in 5 games. So do you think the Blackhawks are going to be able to escape the Boston physical play, or are they going to indeed need to kind of pull belt up one notch and get a little dirty.
I think they're pulling their belt up, and I think Andrew Shaw is a big part of that. I think Brian
Absolutely.
Bickle is a big part of that. Net presence is going to be key in this series. You've seen what Boston's goaltender Tuukka Rask has done. If you get net presence, then you will be able to score a few easy goals, and who knows, this game could look a lot like the LA series early. 2-1 games. It's going to be a fight. Goaltenders, no easy goals, but it's going to be a fun one to see, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. I believe it'll be an extremely low-scoring series, not just games 1 and 2, but I think as the series goes on, it's going to be like Boston versus Vancouver in 2011, which the majority of those games were low-scoring, except for a few of the games in Boston, which turned into blowouts. Now, you mentioned something about Boston strong. The Bruins have that entire city. After the attacks of the Boston Marathon, they've given those people something to smile about, and they have put one of the most impressive runs in Stanley Cup playoff history, and they've just been incredible.
They really have, Johnny, and it's kind of reminiscent of a couple years ago with their great run. New goaltender, but a lot of the guys are the same, and Zdeno Chara is a big part of that. He's a nice leader in the locker room to have. And what Boston has done for the city is incredible and unmatched by anybody.
Absolutely.
But Chicago's going to have to not think about that at all if they want to win this series.
Absolutely. The Blackhawks, kind of something that it reminds me of 2001. The Blackhawks are going to play the role of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Everyone was rooting for the New York Yankees in that World Series. And the Diamondbacks had to come in and they had to, focus and to try to beat the Yankees, and they did in one of the most exciting World Series we've ever seen. So that's going to be important for the Blackhawks to just make sure to be focused and not get too into Boston and too into falling into Boston's trap, as we said earlier.
And that's why it's perfect that they start at home.
Exactly.
They don't have to deal with the emotional crowd right off the bat. They get to start in Chicago, maybe get a couple wins in their belt, and that'll be perfect for them.
Absolutely. Bruins have to deal with the Blackhawks in that national anthem and that just the riveting noise in the United Center. Now, Tim, we're going to go to our predictions for games 1 and 2. What are you looking at for the first 2 games in Chicago?
I'm looking at Brandon Saad to have a huge series. Now, let's not mince words here. He's been awful throughout the playoffs. I mean, I know he's a young kid. He's got
20 years old.
0 goals, 4 assists. That's not what you're looking for. He got demoted to the third line, but watch. This series, he's going to come out with a little bit of an edge. And I'm looking for Brandon Saad to score a big goal tonight, maybe even add an assist, and the Hawks to win both games here in Chicago.
Absolutely. I agree. I think Kane is heating up at the perfect time. Thank God Patrick Kane is finally heating up. I'm looking for the Blackhawks to win tonight. I'm going to say 3-2 in regulation. The Hawks are going to get a late win, 3-2. Game 2, I really have no idea how Game 2 is going to go. Boston's been resilient. And Game 2, I'm not going to put my foot down yet. I'm hoping the Hawks are going to win, obviously, but I think Game 2 could be a huge struggle for the Blackhawks. And I even think maybe we get a split heading to Boston. But Game 2, I really don't know. But Game 1, I think the Hawks are going to come out swinging tonight. Absolutely. And what are your keys to the series, Tim?
My keys to the series is physicality, of course. Whichever team comes out and shows that they're going to be physical, they're going to win the puck in the corners, they're going to have net presence, they're going to finish their checks, that team's going to win the series.
Absolutely. I think for Boston, it's going to be their defense creating offenses. Earlier in the playoffs we saw. And Tuukka Rask, he's a young kid. He's going to have to step up again. And for the Blackhawks, as we said, not falling into the trap of Boston, not trying to fall into their physical trap, taking undisciplined penalties like Pittsburgh did, and they're going to have to stop David Krejci. He's been all over the ice for Boston. He's been huge. And we're going to take our first break here on 3 and Out. When we come back, we're going to discuss the NBA Finals and the blowout that was Game 3 next.
To order a DVD copy of any LTTV program, call us at 708-579-6407 or log on to our website at lttvonline.com. Follow the directions and submit your order. LTTV, welcome home.
Hi, welcome back to 3 and Out here on LTTV. Johnny Lombardi along with Tim Goldrick, and now we shift to the hardwood. Miami Heat versus San Antonio Spurs in the NBA Finals, and the Heat exploded in Game 2, used a 33-5 run to beat the Spurs by a score of 103-84. But as the series shifted back to the Alamo, the Spurs routed the Miami Heat 113-77 to take a 2-1 series lead. Gary Neal and Danny Green, 2 of the Spurs, not in their big 3, outscored the Heat's 5 starters 51-43, as the Spurs couldn't miss last night, Tim.
It was an incredible montage of threes. I couldn't believe what I was watching at a certain point. and you may think I'm hyperbolizing, but no, I literally could not believe it. Danny Green was getting so much space to shoot three-pointers. It was an embarrassment to Eric Spoelstra and the whole Miami Heat team.
And Eric Spoelstra made his team own it. He left his starters in that game until the final horn because they were just an atrocity last night. It was awful.
They really were, and it started with LeBron James. If you're the big star, you can't come out and be passive. You got to be aggressive right off the tip.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that the Heat, they're so inconsistent, but their switch is so impressive. It's really annoying, but it's also so incredible how they can just turn it on as they did in Game 2, but also turn it off in Game 3.
Yeah, and don't expect anything different, though. This is what the Miami Heat live by. I'm confident Miami will come out in Game 4, get the job done like they always do. They're 5-0 this postseason following a loss. So you're sitting there, you're thinking, God, the Heat won't win anything. But, I mean, just keep in the back of your mind that Miami bounces back all the time. This is nothing new for them. LeBron James, if you're expecting a huge game from him, it'll happen.
Yeah, absolutely. They did it against the Bulls. They bounced back and won 4 straight. They won Game 2 most of all. And when they bounce back, Tim, they're blowing teams out. They blew out the Bulls. They blew out the Pacers. They blew out the Pacers twice. And they blew out San Antonio in Game number 2. And I expect the Heat to come back. I mean, Game 4 is going to be interesting, but the real question is who has control and who has momentum right now in this series?
I mean, obviously the Spurs have momentum right now. But following the next game, which will be interesting because I have the Heat winning the next game, Game 5 is what you really should be looking forward to.
Last game in San Antonio.
Last game in San Antonio. If the Spurs walk out of San Antonio with a 3-2 win, there's no way you can tell me that Tim Duncan will not finish the job in one of the last 2 games.
Absolutely. He's too good. I mean, we always talk about the Heat's big 3, and they've been, to some extent, less than impressive. It's been a lot of the Heat depth that's really helped them, and LeBron James can only carry the Miami Heat so much. But Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker mostly past their prime, but they still find ways to win ball games, and they play fundamental basketball. The Heat use superstar talent, and the Spurs use their talent in a system that has worked for years, and it still works.
Absolutely. Greg Popovich, one of the best coaches in the NBA. It's all about a system in the NBA. If you have the right offense, if you play the right defense, if you have the right coach, anybody can be successful. I mean, do you honestly think Gary Neal, if he goes to what, the Bucks, he's going to be a real successful player? He's in a system that benefits him right now.
And the Spurs use that system to benefit players that aren't part of the Spurs Big 3. And think about this. If the San Antonio Spurs were not in San Antonio and they were in Chicago, Miami, New York, Boston, they would be the Miami Heat. They would get the attention, but because they're in a small market in San Antonio, people think they don't get the attention that they deserve.
Exactly. San Antonio, it's a beautiful city, but
Love it.
I mean, you're not sitting there with the national media there every day.
Yeah.
They play with, a good crowd, but there's nobody out there from ESPN. There's no Brian Windhorse who is hired just to cover LeBron James.
Yeah. I mean, they have some great fans, though. They do. Their fans come out, and they've supported them, but it's all about the system for the San Antonio Spurs, and that is what has brought them so far. When I was younger, and even until recently, I was always like, the Spurs, I can't stand the Spurs, or they're boring, they don't play flashy, but the Spurs, they're not about flash. They play the game. Greg Popovich does not want any of that. Doesn't want the flashiness. He just wants his team to go out there and play basketball. And especially this postseason, I think everyone's earned a lot of respect for the San Antonio Spurs and how they've gone through the postseason now, Tim. I want to ask you, what is your prediction score-wise and performance-wise Game 4?
I have 99-85 Miami Heat. And that's a low-scoring game for the Spurs because they're run and gun. They have been lately. They've been getting out in transition and hitting threes. But Miami's going to slow the game down. LeBron James is going to get back in the post, but he's also going to take jumpers. And you'll see a big game from him, and Miami will come out on top.
Absolutely. I agree. I just don't see any way that the Miami Heat can go down 3-1 to San Antonio, facing an elimination game in the Alamo. I don't see it happening. I say the Heat win this one 95-90. I'm going to have it's going to be a tight one. I think the Heat are going to win tight. They've been known to blow out the team they play after they lose a game in the playoffs, but I think that trend will end tonight. But I do think the Heat will win. I think LeBron will have a big game. I think Dwayne Wade will be better. He was better against the Pacers after he was criticized a little bit. I think he'll play a little better. His knee is a little bit of a question mark right now. But another real question mark for the Spurs, though, is Tony Parker and his hamstring issue.
Tony Parker's a big question mark, but I want to get back to what you said about Dwayne Wade. Yeah. This is where you and I disagree. I think Dwayne Wade is done. I honestly think he's done. I call him the momentum killer. And no, that's not a good thing. He kills his own team's momentum. Last night, Miami's on a 6-0 run. What does Dwayne Wade do? He comes down the court, he shoots an air ball. Spurs go on a 6-0 run. Next half, they're going the other way, third quarter. Miami starts to pick it up a little bit. They're down 10 now. They're narrowing the lead. Dwayne Wade takes a fadeaway, top of the key shot, bricks it awfully. I think Dwayne Wade doesn't know when to shoot. He's confused about the offense. The only times he gets baskets are when LeBron James feeds him.
LeBron James is one of the best passers in the league, maybe the best, and that's what really helps Dwayne Wade. And he's just been in a funk this postseason, an absolute funk. He doesn't know what to do, and it poses the question, if the Heat don't win this championship, what happens to the big three?
That's a great question, and I can't see Chris Bosh staying. Even if they win, I can't see Chris Bosh staying. He just has been giving nothing to the Miami Heat except a jump shooter. Yeah. And they already have plenty of those. You see Ray Allen, Mike Miller on the floor. You don't need Chris Bosh to shoot threes. Go out and get a real post man.
You know it's bad when they find Chris Anderson Birdman to do almost Bosh's job. They pick him up instead of using their big three player. They found Chris Anderson, and he's been doing what Chris Bosh, everyone thought he would do for the Heat, be a productive post player. All right, we're going to take a break here on 3 and Out. When we come back, we're going to talk about Tim Tebow. Believe it or not, Tim Tebow is back in the news. We'll talk about him right now when we get back.
What do we do at LTTV?
LTTV rocks. Whoosh! LTTV rocks.
LTTV rocks my socks.
Yeah, that's how we roll.
Hi, welcome back to 3 and Out here on LTTV. Johnny Lombardi alongside Tim Goldrick. Now we're going to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Tim Tebow, back in the news after he was released by the New York Jets after a lackluster year where just tons of media frenzy and just craziness surrounding Tebow mania. He has now been signed by the New England Patriots, one of the dynasties of the 2000s in the NFL. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick and company, signing Tim Tebow. Tim, what was your level of surprise that the Patriots picked up Tim Tebow?
I wasn't very surprised just because the Patriots do this type of weird things. They pick up people. You saw them pick up Randy Moss and Chad Ochocinco when nobody wanted them.
Yeah.
They pick up Tim Tebow, who wasn't wanted by the NFL, nevertheless the CFL too. Canadian Football League didn't want him. Arena Football League didn't want him. But the Patriots did. And what I think is very interesting about this is Tim Tebow is going to learn from the best. So don't be surprised if Tim Tebow will be in the league for a while after this.
Absolutely. And for me, it was a huge surprise to me. I thought for sure it would be a Jacksonville, an Oakland, Arizona to pick him up. But the New England Patriots pick up Tim Tebow, and I think it is a perfect fit because there's not going to be any hype. People know who the quarterback's going to be in New England. It's going to be Tom Brady. When Tom Brady throws an interception, there's not going to be chance for Tebow. First of all, you have Ryan Mallett, who's a very good backup, and then you're going to have Tim Tebow, and Bill Belichick will use him in many different ways. But I think it's perfect that he went to a team like New England because if Tim Tebow went to Oakland, the first time their quarterback throws an interception, you're going to hear the Tebow chants, and there's more pressure on him in a city like that. I think in New England, there's not going to be the pressure, there's not going to be the expectations of him being the quarterback, so he can just go out and develop his skills and help the Patriots in other ways.
It's very true. It's a great point you make because Tebow won't be chanted for in the crowd. He won't be a fan favorite even.
Yeah.
He'll sit on the sideline. He'll learn from Bill Belichick. He'll learn from Tom Brady. He'll learn from his old offensive coordinator, the one who drafted him, Josh McDaniels. So it's a great fit for Team Tebow. I'm very happy the Patriots picked him up. I'm a Tim Tebow fan myself. Yeah. I like what he stands for, and he's a born winner. So for him to go to another winning ball club, it's unbelievable for him.
Putting two incredible winners together in the same organization. And I think Bill Belichick's going to use him. I think that there are situations where you can use Tim Tebow on it, whether it's a 4th and short, and we know how Bill Belichick likes to do trick plays from time to time. I think he's going to be used in New England very well. So will he play quarterback, or will he be moved to tight end or fullback?
Oh, I think he'll play quarterback. I think Bill Belichick signed him to play quarterback. They had a draft to get a tight end, get a fullback. Yeah. And they don't need those positions. They have two great tight ends who also, in certain packages, play fullback. Tim Tebow was signed to be a quarterback. Backup, third string, we don't know. But if Tom Brady gets hurt, you have a proven winner on your bench.
Absolutely. And even if, they're talking about the Patriots maybe trading Ryan Mallett or some other team who needs a quarterback, let's think, like Arizona. Ryan Mallett is a very good quarterback. Patriots need something else that can deal Ryan Mallett, and that puts Tim Tebow right in the number 2 quarterback slot. I don't think that will happen because Patriots obviously, I think, would love to have Ryan Mallett as a backup. But I think Tim Tebow, I think it's perfect. I think this is, no pun intended, a gift sent from above for him because he was just down and out on his luck, looking for a break, and I think this is incredible for him.
Well, if you had to pick what Tim Tebow is feeling like today, it's relief.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to deal with the circus anymore. The New York Jets are gone. They're gone. No Rex Ryan, no Mark Sanchez, no New York media. They got the Boston media, which is pretty bad sometimes. But the New England Patriots are a fantastic, fantastic spot to land.
Absolutely. And I think you said about the media is the biggest thing. I mean, in Denver, there were expectations, but then Peyton Manning came in and those went away pretty fast. And then he moves to New York, the Jets. And I think that was just awful. From the beginning, I didn't think it was going to work. The New York Jets, an absolute circus. Now he can go to a place that's a little more mellow, consistent, not flashy. The New England Patriots, they just go out there, they play football, and they win. And I think that's going to be incredible for him. And I was listening to The Herd on ESPN Radio at work, and Colin Cowherd had this pyramid of success rate for Tim Tebow. And at the bottom, he had teams like we talked about, Oakland, Tampa Bay, Jacksonville, teams where if the quarterback threw a pick, people would be chanting for Tebow to come in, and that would be the pressure. And at the top, he had the New England Patriots as the best success for Tebow because there were no expectations. He can just go out and develop.
Exactly. And Tim Tebow, once again, he's learning from the best. He'll get involved with the system. And Tom Brady's missed a full year before due to an injury.
Yeah.
Not saying that it'll happen again because other than that, he stayed pretty clean with his injuries. But this is great insurance for the New England Patriots.
Absolutely.
They ought to be thrilled with the signing. Tim Tebow is thrilled to be signed. And I'm looking for a wonderful relationship between the two.
Absolutely. I think it could be something long-term that the Patriots have. And just think, for the Patriots, you have one of the best human beings in this country in your locker room. I mean, Tim Tebow, he's a winner, he's a great person, and he's positive. In that locker room, I don't think there's going to be any hype or anger like there was in the Jets locker room where he got the attention he maybe didn't deserve and the fans want him to come in or whatever. I think in the Patriots locker room, they know what they have to do, and I think he's going to be huge in that locker room as a positive force for the Patriots. I mean, they already have enough reinforcement from Belichick and Brady. They're going to be good this year, but I think that extra thing in the locker room is awesome for them.
Well, what the Patriots' motto is, what they go by all the time, what solves all the problems? Winning.
Yes.
They'll do that. Tim Tebow won't talk to the media nearly half as much. Brady's the leader of the team. Belichick's the coach. Tim Tebow will be out of the limelight for a while. Everybody on ESPN can take a break. Hopefully. And Tim Tebow will have a perfectly fine NFL career.
Absolutely. I'm really hoping this works out, and we're going to give out grades. I give this an A. I think this is great for both sides.
I agree. A+. It's fantastic for both sides, even if it doesn't work out. You're not paying Tim Tebow $14 million a year to sit on the bench. He's just sitting there for about $1.5 million a year.
Exactly. All right, now we're going to head to our next segment. Now we're going to take a break here on 3 and Out. Next segment, we're going to be talking about a bunch of things as we close out our very first show. Please don't leave.
To order a DVD copy of any LTTV program, call us at 708-579-6407 or log on to our website at lttvonline.com. Follow the directions and submit your order. LTTV, welcome home.
Hi, welcome back to 3 and Out here on LTTV. Johnny Lombardi alongside me, Tim Goldrick. We're here in our last segment. We're going to give you a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about a lot, but starting off with the U.S. Open, Tim, at Marion Golf Club in New Jersey, the place where Bobby Jones completed his Grand Slam in 1924. This golf course is known for its long, thick, rough, and skinny fairways, making driving a huge key to this tournament. And it's been pouring rain there all week, and a 60% chance of thunderstorms tomorrow as the tournament gets underway. What are you expecting from the U.S. Open?
I'm expecting a lot of guys to go right at the pin. If it's going to be wet, they're going to go at the pin. They're going to try to nestle it up nice and close. But you said it. You nailed the nail right on the head, I guess you could say. Driving's going to be key, and Luke Donald has been driving very well lately, so look for him to make a little noise.
And I'm going to pull a Skip Bayless here. He always tells Tiger Woods to keep the driver in his bag because he's inconsistent. I agree. I hope Tiger Woods does not pull his driver out, plays smart, especially with the fairways and the rough like this. Now we're going to go to our NBA grading segment. School might be up, but we have a few more grades to dish out to everyone, so we're going to give some grades to the Heat and Spurs. Tim, you first. What is your grade for LeBron James?
LeBron James gets a C for last night. His passing is always an A. His rebounding is always an A. But last night he really didn't lead very well. He didn't score. He didn't get his teammates up to score. I would say LeBron James got a solid C.
I'm going to give LeBron James a C minus. I mean, I thought he was back in South Beach sitting on the beach just chilling out because he was non-existent. As you said, his passing is fantastic. He sets up his teammates so well, but his leadership just was not there last night. I think that'll really change in Game 4, though. Dwayne Wade, we know your opinion on Dwayne Wade. What grade are you giving Dwayne Wade?
D. He had an okay first half. He still made some terrible mistakes. Huge momentum killer. He's washed up. He's done. He's dirty. He's not the same Dwayne Wade.
Chris Bosh.
Chris Bosh, C minus. You saw flashes last night where he could be a max contract player. He took the ball to the hoop, he burned Duncan a couple times, and he hit his elbow jumpers, but no rebounding. No rebounding support for Chris Bosh.
What grade are you giving the Spurs bench?
Spurs bench gets an A. I mean, when you get DeJuan Blair off the bench to score 9 points at the end of the game, I mean, that's pretty crazy. Gary Neal played great. I mean, you saw Manu Ginobili played pretty well. He only played 23 minutes last night, but still scored 7 points. I mean, Matt Bonner came off and contributed. He missed a few wide open threes, but he also spread the floor nicely for the Spurs.
Some more grades moving on to the Major League Baseball. The Detroit Tigers, what grade are you giving them?
A minus. Detroit Tigers have played pretty well this year. They're not in the best division, and they're 9 games above 500 in the worst division probably in baseball. But they've still taken care of business.
Colorado Rockies out of the NL West, 1 game behind the Arizona Diamondbacks. A bit of a surprise, the Rockies.
A+. I mean, you could not script a season any better than what the Rockies are doing coming off last year. 21-14 at home, so they truly do have a home field advantage. And their last 7, they're 7-3.
Coors Field is an unbelievable stadium. I've been there. Family from Colorado. I love the Rockies. I'm going to give them an A as well. I love movies. Every week I'm going to give 3 movies to go see that I love. 42, the story about Jackie Robinson, Tim, great movie. I thought Perks of Being a Wallflower was fantastic.
Absolutely.
A really underrated movie.
Absolutely.
I loved it when I saw it. And then Silver Linings I thought was really good. You seen it?
Agree to disagree.
You didn't like it?
I wasn't a fan.
I thought it was interesting. A very interesting story.
I will give you that. It was an interesting story.
Interesting story. So those are 3 movies. Take those to the bank. Go see them. We'll see you next week here on 3 and Out. For Tim Goldrick, I'm Johnny Lombardi. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday.